Good day. So this is the recipe software application for POE Part 2. And basically, I'm just going to be giving a brief explanation of how each of the code works and how the whole program works in general. So I'm basically just going to also explain each class as well, and as well as the unit testing that I did over here. So I'm just going to run up the application now and just start it. So basically, this is what the user is going to see first. It's going to be prompted all the menu options and from 1 to 8. The first option that user is going to be prompted is going to be enter recipe. So basically, this is just where the user enters the recipe names, the ingredients, the units, the quantities that each recipe needs to have. And then that's just going to be the first option. The second option is to display the recipe. So this is just going to display the recipe names. So if you have multiple recipes, just going to show them multiple recipe names. And option three, display recipe details. That just explains itself. So um, it's gonna display each recipe that the user wants to see. So basically, it's gonna prompt the user for what recipe. So if the user has three recipes already embedded into the system, um, and the user wants to, let's just say the user wants to see option the recipe two, then he would only see recipe two if he inputs recipe two. If that makes sense. Yeah, we're gonna run it through the code. I know it's all gonna make sense. And for calculate total calories, so that's just the calories of each recipe is gonna be calculated, and also gonna give messages to see if it's exceeded 300 calories or not. And then number five, recipe scale. That's just gonna scale the recipes through factors. So from 0.5, factor of 2, factor of 3. So basically just gonna scale the quantities of each recipe. Number six is gonna reset the recipe values back to the original values that I already had. And number seven, just gonna clear all the recipe data. So if let's just say I'm gonna input it now, but let's just say you had a recipe called cake, and the user picks option seven, then the recipe data for cake is gonna disappear and it's gonna go away, and it's not gonna be embedded into the system. And then number eight is to exit the application in total, and that just that just exits the whole application. So I'm just gonna start running it now, and first I'm just gonna input a recipe. So I'm going to choose option one. I'm just going to say option one, enter recipe name. Let's just say steak. I'm just going to say steak there. And then this now is asking for a number of ingredients. Actually, let me enlarge this for you. Now it's going to ask for number of ingredients. Right, so let's just say how many ingredients will the steak have? Let's just say three. So ingredient one is just going to be the actual steak. The actual steak or meat, and then quantities. Now in the code, there's embedded code. I could say 2 kgs, but I want to see if it's actually gonna change from grams to kilograms. So I'm instead of saying 2 kgs, I'm gonna say 2,000 grams, and it's gonna ask me for the units. So I'm just gonna say grams. Um, I'm just gonna say okay. Now it shows me that I should enter calorie count for ingredient one. So basically just what the steak calorie is gonna be. So I don't know how much a steak calorie is, but I'm just gonna guess and say maybe 300, maybe if it's a small steak. But depending on the quantity and the unit of the steak, is obviously the calorie count is also going to increase as well. And food group, I'm going to go protein because meat is protein. And now it prompts me for ingredient two. So now ingredient two, we could say maybe oil. We'll go oil, and quantity we'll say maybe four. We'll go 4 teaspoons. Go 4 teaspoons to add to the steak. And then the calorie count for oil, I don't think it would be as much as the steak, so we'll go maybe 50 calories. And then for food group, I think it's fat and oil, so I'm just gonna say fat and oil. I'm not too sure what food group oil is in, but I think it's their fats or lipids, something like that. And then enter ingredient three. Now for steak, let's just say salt. I'm just gonna say salt. And quantity, we're gonna go three. No, we're gonna go two, maybe teaspoons. I don't know why you would add salt to steak. Maybe add some spices, but for this, we're just gonna say salt. And then calorie count, I don't think that's gonna be a lot. Maybe 20. And then food group, You're just gonna go grains because I don't know what salt is for the food group. And then number of steps. So basically after as you can see here, it says enter number of ingredients, and I've said 3. After I've done ingredient 1, ingredient 2, and ingredient 3, it's gonna display and ask me for the number of steps that I need. And then I'm just gonna say 4. I'm just gonna say 4. Step 1, add oil to pan. Step 2, add salt to meat. And then step 3, I could probably say put meat in the pan like that. And step 4, I'm just gonna say turn uh and stir till well done. Okay, I know those steps don't really make sense, but we're just gonna go there. And then now it's gonna display a message to the user and say recipe added successfully. And then it displays the main menu again here. So now if we do wanna display this recipe, we could go to, and then you can see recipe names, recipes right here. That's one steak. And then if you want to see the actual details of the recipe, would go 3, and it's gonna prompt you for the recipe number, which is 1, because it's the first recipe that we've entered, 1 here. So we're gonna go recipe number 1, and now it's gonna show you the recipe and recipe name, the ingredients, 2 kgs of steak. Notice how it changed from 2 kgs. No, sorry. Notice how it changed from 2 grams to, remember, 2000 grams is here, to 2 kgs. So 2000 grams would be 2 kgs. So that is all right. That's done. That's a good like piece of code there. Um, just want to go back here to where we displayed. Um, yeah. So where we displayed here. So notice how we changed from 2 kgs, from 2000 grams to 2 kgs of steak, which is good. That's what we wanted. And then 4 teaspoons of oil, 2 teaspoons of salt. And then it shows you the steps as well. Add oil to pan, add salt to meat, put meat in pan, turn and stir till well done. I did not write stir properly. But then now let's just say we want to add um recipe. So we're just gonna go there, and now let's just say cupcake. Just gonna say cupcake. We're gonna make a cupcake. We're gonna say 3 ingredients like steak as well. Ingredient 1, I'm gonna go flour. Quantity again, let's say 1/500, and then now we're gonna go grams. We're just gonna go a single G, um, like that, and we're gonna say enter calorie count for ingredient 1. Flour is made basically the base of the cake, so we would want to say like maybe like 500, maybe, I don't know. Enter food group for ingredient 1. We're gonna go grains as well, and then ingredient 2 would go eggs. uh then we'll go maybe 5 eggs. Unit, I think eggs, 5 eggs. I don't know, I think units can be eggs as well. And then enter calorie count for ingredient 2. So that's basically eggs actually have a lot of calories. So I'm gonna probably say 600 maybe. I don't know. And then say enter food group. Eggs are proteins. So we're just gonna write proteins in there. And then ingredient 3, let's just say water. Say water now. And then we'd say maybe 500 milliliters. So we're just gonna go ml, milliliters, and then now we're gonna say enter calorie count for ingredient 3. So we'll say about 100 calories in water, and then food group would just say liquid. Just say liquid for food group, and then now I've entered all my 3 ingredients that I need. It's gonna display me for the number of steps. So I'm just gonna say 4 as well. Gonna add flour to bowl, and I'm gonna say add eggs, stir, bowl, and let's say add water for the last step. Okay, now it's added, recipe added successfully. Now in the code we have to display the recipe names in alphabetical order. So what we're hoping now, if I press option 2, what I'm hoping now is that cupcake is gonna be number 1 and steak is gonna be number 2, because cupcake starts with C and steak starts with S. So hopefully if I put 2, cupcake should be number 1, and there we see recipe names, recipes, cupcake is number 1 and steak is number 2. And now I want to display the recipe details for number 1. So this is going to be for steak because that's the first recipe that we entered. So we've already seen the steak one. Now let's go display recipe details, recipe number 2, and now you can see cupcake is embedded into the program. Ingredients, remember we put 1,500 grams. Now I changed to 1.5 kgs of flour, 5 eggs, 1.5 liters. Remember we put 1,500 milliliters, and it's changed to 1.5 liters of water. And then our steps: add flour to bowl, add eggs, stir bowl, add water, and all good. So now we have 2 recipes, which I think is enough for the rest of the code. So let's just say now we want to calculate total calories for each recipe. So basically, for each ingredient that I have decided to put in, 2 kgs of steak, 4 teaspoons of oil, 2 teaspoons. It asks me each for a calorie count. So and I can't remember precisely what each calorie count was, but it's gonna add up and calculate all the calories together in these whole ingredients for the recipe steak, and it's gonna give me a value, and that's what we're gonna take. So we're gonna go recipe number 1, and now it's calculated. So total calories for steak is 370, and then now when it exceeds 300 calories, it shows me a warning message, and it says the total calories for steak exceeds 300 calories, and then it shows me the total calories 370. So it's 70 over the expected calorie count, which is 300, and that is what we want. Let's say if we go for the second option, and calories calculator, this is for cake now, and then it says total calories for cupcake is 1,200, which is way over 300 calories, and then it shows me a total calories which is 1,200. Now that is just for the total calories calculator. Now let's just say if you want to go option 5, now we want to scale the recipe. So now there are 3 factors: 0.5, 2, and 3. So we can scale each quantity with those 3 factors. So now enter recipe number. Let's just say we want to scale recipe number 2 because it's a cupcake. We want to make a cupcake for a party now. And do you want to scale factor quantities? Now this is actually very important, because now let's just say the user didn't want to scale, and then the user and the recipe just scaled by itself. Now this message actually just prompts the user to make sure that the user actually wants to scale the recipe. So let's just say if we hit option number 2 and we say no, and then it's gonna display a message and say quantities was not scaled because of your choice. But we actually do want to scale, so we're just gonna click option 5 again and say recipe number 2, which is cupcake, and it's going to display the message again. And now we just want to say yes instead of no, and then now it says please enter what you want the quantity to be scaled by. So 0.5, 2, or 3, those are 3 factors. Let's say 2. We want to scale it by 2. Now it's going to say prompt us a message and say recipe has been scaled successfully, right? So obviously now it's not going to show us, but if we go back, so let's just say if we just go back and we display the recipe details, we're gonna see everything multiplied by 2, because it's been the scale factor that we multiplied by 2. So we're gonna go 3, and we're gonna go recipe number 2, and then now we can see 3 kgs of flour. Remember it was 1.5, now we times it by 2, so it's 3 kgs of flour. Remember it was 5 eggs, now it's 10 eggs, and it was 1.5 liters of water, now it is 3 liters of water. Okay, cool. Now that we've scaled this recipe, we can unscale the recipe if we actually want to. So now that would be option number 6, to reset the recipe values back to the original value that it was. So what we're hoping now is that once we reset the value, it should change back to 1.5 kgs of flour, 5 eggs, and 1.5 liters of water. So basically what I'm going to do, we're going to hit recipe 2 again, and now it prompts us a message again to ask if we actually do want to reset the quantities. Let's just say we don't want to reset the quantity actually, and we press 2. Now it's going to display quantities was not resetted because of your choice. Now, but we actually do want to, reset the recipe values back to the original value. So we're going to go 2 again, and now this time we're going to say yes instead of no by displaying 1. And now recipe value is reset successfully. Now I just want you to come back here, 3 kgs, 10 eggs, 3 liters. So now it should be 1.5 kgs, and it should be 1.5 kgs, 5 eggs, and 1.5 liters. So we're just gonna go do that, and then we're gonna go 2, and the recipe cupcake has gone back to 1.5 to 5 eggs and to 1.5 liters of water. So, and our steps are still the same. So yeah, so basically just resetted back the values to the original values before the recipe quantities actually got scaled. And now option 7, let's just say now we just want to clear a recipe data. Let's just say we want to clear a recipe data. So we're gonna go option 7, and so basically what this option does is just as it says, it clears the recipe data. So basically the recipe name will be gone, set to null. The ingredients, the steps will all be cleared off the program. So now let's just say we want to go option 2. Now this is the most important part actually, because now let's just say we don't want to clear a recipe, because if this was not here, if this was not prompted to the user, it would just automatically reset. I mean, not reset, it would just automatically clear the whole ingredients and the whole recipe. And let's just say the user didn't want to do that, so basically this is just prompted to the user to just make sure. Let's just say we want to say no as well, recipe data was not cleared because of your choice, but we actually do want to reset, clear the data. So we're gonna go recipe number 2, and then do you want to clear all recipe data? So now we want to say yes, and recipe data cleared successfully. Now we can actually see if cupcake is actually gone, and this and has been cleared away from the whole system. So now we'd want to display the recipe. So now you can see the recipe cupcake is gone. It does still show 1, but cupcake is gone, and but steak is still remaining because we have not cleared the steak part. And so now if we actually do want to see the details of, let's say, yeah, we want to see the details of recipe number 2, everything is gone. So the recipe name is gone, the ingredients are gone, the steps are gone, recipe name set to null, and ingredients and steps are just cleared from the whole data. And let's just say we want to see because steak is still going to be there, so now we want to see recipe number 1. Steak is going to be there because steak has not been erased yet. So 2 kgs, 4 teaspoons, everything is still there. And so yeah, but that's basically how the whole application works from 1 to 7. And then obviously if we want to click option number 8, program exited successfully. Now look at how much we've done here. Oh wait, I canceled it by mistake. Look at how much we did there with just all the main menu and display. If I just run it again, look at what we did here from 1 to 8, where we entered the recipe, we displayed the recipe, we displayed the recipe details as well, and calculated total calories, and as well as the recipe scale, and we set the recipe values, we cleared the recipe data, and we exited the application. So that's basically what for each option that the user has, that's what each option is gonna be evaluated by once the user has inputted recipes into the system. So yeah, that's basically how the application works. And yeah, so I don't know if this is actually recommended to actually speak about each class, but I'm just gonna go down briefly just in case it is required. So basically the namespace recipe software. Now this is basically while true, so this loops back after the user is done inputting. So So anytime the user inputs one of the options, the whole menu is going to be displayed back, and that's our. And so basically these are just the if statements. We used if statements instead of switch cases. Switch cases are recommended if you have like three or more options, but I just opted to go with if cases in this case, and it displays an error message, which we actually did not test. We can actually test that right now. Let's just say I want to go 10. Let's say I want to go 10. Now it's going to go invalid option. Please try again, and it's going to reprompt the whole menu. So that's basically how that works. And yeah, this is the enter recipe class. No, enter recipe method where we entered each ingredient, recipe name, quantity, and units, and display recipes. So this is basically just how we displayed each recipe name. And so basically this is just for changing the color of the text. And yeah, this whole method just displays the individual recipe names, and we use a lambda expression to just sort the recipes in alphabetical order and by name. And then yeah, so this for loop actually just iterates through the sorted recipes as well, and that's basically how we displayed the recipe names. And the recipe details is also the same thing as the recipe names. Now we just you know, the if statement just checks if the recipe number is valid in the program, and that is why we have a and boolean true or false here. So if the recipe number if the recipe number is equals above and equals to 0, and the recipe number actually exists in between the count, then yeah, it's going to be displayed. So that's just quickly what that is. And then calculate total calories. This method just calculates the total calories. The number -1 here from the entered value is just to adjust it to a zero-based index used in the recipes list. And yeah, everything's kind of the same as the display recipe method. And then but here we have a if statement, total calories. If the total calories is more than 300, then it notifies the calories exceeded event, which I'm gonna go back to. I'm gonna explain that. And yeah, displays an error message, and displays the error message. Okay, cool. So basically that's what it is. Recipe scale. So this is basically where we scale the recipe. No, the quantities of each recipe. Checks the conditions as well, and then prompts the user for the scale. And then basically I'm gonna go to the recipe class where we actually did the whole scaling calculation. But yeah, this just prompts the user whether or not the recipe number was valid, or if the quantities was not scaled, or if the quantities were scaled. And then reset recipe values, same as the recipe scale. um the calculations are in the recipe class here, so I'll be going back to that. And yeah, and then clear recipe data, it just changes everything back to null, which is also in the recipe data recipe class. And this is our exit program. And yeah, it just exits the program and notify calories exceeded. This is just a method that I made, so it displays a warning, and the 0 here in the brackets here is a placeholder that will be replaced by the recipe name. So the total calories for cupcake, or the total calories for steak, exceeds 300 calories. And that basically that is the main class. I just want to quickly do that just in case I was needed to. And then the recipe class as well is also going to make quick as well. Don't worry about this red. It just means that I've like just like skipped a place. You know what I mean? It's just like I've deleted two things or something. But then yeah. So basically this is just quickly with the recipe class. I stored the name and the list of each recipe, ingredients, quantities, units, food group, and that's basically just like how I store it in a list, so I can store multiple um information for that. Now this is the delegate I was talking about. So delegate for having the event where calories exceed a certain limit, and then recipe name and total calories embedded into the arguments of each bracket. And then the public event, and this is where we just handle the calories exceeded. And then recipe name, the unit testing is done, but I'll be showing you that. Public recipe, just how I initialize each of the list. And this is how I just added all the ingredients to the list. And I added a step. I got the name of the recipe name, got the total calorie sum, and then displayed the ingredients in each ingredient in each list, and rescaled the um scaled the recipe. So basically this is how we calculated that was called into the main method there. And clear data recipe set into null, ingredients quantities, and yeah, display steps as well, just like display recipe, and check calories exceeded. So basically we're just using the delegate that we mentioned up there here. And so now it checks if the necessary condition was met, and then now it invokes the event from the delegate and passes the recipe name and total calories, which is good, and then exited the program method. And that basically that's just the class. This is actually irritating me, so I'm just gonna remove that. I'm just gonna do that instead. And yeah, so that's basically the main class and the recipe class. And the last thing I just want to show you is the unit test. So the unit test that we require to do is basically just for uh the calorie checker. So now we've done our unit test. Now we want to arrange. So now we added an object to call on the methods in the recipe class. So we called on the recipe object, and inside is the recipe name. And then now we call the recipe method add ingredients. So we add the sugar, 150 grams, 600 calories, uh, and sweeteners. So basically, this is just the name of the ingredient, the the quantity, the units, the calories, which is the most important one, and the food group. So now we want to act on it, and we say double total calories equals to get total calories, which is how we calculate the whole calories in one recipe ingredient. So basically what we want to do is just sum up all the 600, 940, and 400, and double actual, we call in a new variable, and it's gonna be called actual, is gonna be equals to this total calories. And then double expected, so what we're expecting from the sum of 600, 940, and 400 is gonna be 1940. So now we call into the assert equal, which the assert tests the conditions to see if they are met. And we're gonna go assert r equal expected actual. So let's just rerun the unit test again. So we're gonna go A40, and we're gonna go A40 here. So no, actually, no, let me see if let me just do this first. So we expected 1000, so the whole sum is 1840, but now we're expecting 1940. So when we go to our text explorer, we the test should fail. The test should fail because that's not what our expected outcome is. So just gonna do this. You see, so now the test has failed. But if we go back to the unit test and we change this to 940, now the whole sum here should be expected in here. So now what we want to do is just run the whole application again to just see that the whole thing has passed. So it should pass now. And that's how our unit test runs. So see, now everything has passed because our expected value is the same as the total sum here. So now everything is passed. Recipe good, and the program is good. So basically this is just how the whole program is. If you're still watching and you just want to see how the whole application ran, then you could have skipped all the part where I was explaining each class. But if this is recommended, then thank you for watching. And yeah, this is the whole application recipe software, and yeah, that's just how the whole code runs. So thank you very much.